after your first year, you qualified for the Nationals, you went 0-1. Your
Yeah.
second year, same thing. How disappointing was it your sophomore year to go 0-1?
My freshman year, it wasn't as disappointing because I was a freshman. And I don't think Penn had actually ever had a freshman even qualify for the NCAA. So there was a level of success to that, right? So it's like, hey, you're the first Penn freshman to ever qualify for the NCAA. So it was almost like I didn't become All-American, but it was almost like, hey, you got third in the EIWAs as a freshman. You qualified for the NCAAs. There was almost like, you're okay. You're on the right track. The frustrating part of that was back when you lost your first match, the guy that beat you, he had to win his next match. So, of course, I go in the program, I'm looking, I'm like, okay, this guy from Duquesne has this guy. Well, he has a guy from Oklahoma State. That's not good. But I looked at the guy's record, and the guy had a losing record. I'm like, there's a chance I get to get back in this tournament. This guy who just beat me is about to wrestle a guy who has a losing record. I think the guy, I'm going to be off maybe a little bit, but I think he was like 9-14, I think was his record. And I was like, there's hope, there's a chance. And so then I look out there and I see the guys walk on the mat. And here's the guy who just beat me from Duquesne. And then here's this guy from Oklahoma State walks on the mat, and his name's Mark Branch.
I knew you were going to say that. I knew you were going to. As he said the losing record, I'm like, tell me, because sometimes I miss connecting dots like that because we're going to talk about Branch. How the hell did I miss that? Oh
so Mark
God.
Branch rides this guy from Duquesne for 5 minutes, just whoops him. And I'm like, what the heck? I'm out of the tournament. So I go up, of course, now I don't have to make weight, anymore. So it's like, I can kind of eat what I want. And I end up, I remember meeting, I think his name was Quincy Clark. Was it Quincy Jones or Quincy Clark from OU? He was one of the number one seeds, and he lost first round. And so he was out of the tournament. We met each other up to get a chili cheese dog, up in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, because we're both out of the tournament. And we're both kind of like, we're smiling about it because we're about to eat chili cheese dogs together, but we're bummed, right, that we're out of the tournament. But Mark Branch goes on and has Chad Renner, I think one of the next matches, who was one of the top seeds, whoops him. And he just keeps marching on. And then he has this guy from, I think he's maybe from Cal State Fullerton. He was a Hungarian guy. I think he was more of a Greco guy. Of course, Mark Branch, I think, rides him and beats him. And he's the NCAA champion. So, again, my freshman year, knowing that the guy that beat me was beat by the NCAA champion, it was almost a small amount of consolation prize in that. But going into my sophomore year, there was a higher expectation. There's a higher expectation for me to do much better. And I ended up getting a tough draw. I was second in the EIWAs. I lost to Rick Hepp in the finals, who was a 4-time All-American Lehigh. Guy was pretty tough. That's who he'd beat me the year before in the semifinals of the EIWAs. So Rick is kind of one of the main guys who had beat me my first 2 years. But again, he was a great wrestler. And I just got to the NCAAs. I ended up having one of the top seeds from Michigan. I think he was the number 3 seed maybe. First round. It was a tough draw. I had high expectations of myself, but I had a tough draw. And he ends up beating me. I think I lost by a point. Didn't beat me bad, but then you're thinking, okay, again, this guy's the number 3 seed. He's probably has a good chance to win next round to pull me back in. And then so it's like trying to get my coaches, Coach Reina, they're trying to get me excited about having the right attitude of coming back on the backside like you do as a coach. And this guy from Michigan has a guy from Seton Hall. And you're thinking for sure the guy from Michigan, one of the top seeds, he'll beat this guy from Seton Hall. Nope. The guy from Seton Hall upsets him. I'm out of the tournament again. The guy from Seton Hall actually ended up becoming an All-American that year. I think he was, one of the few All-Americans Seton Hall wrestling history. His name was Lou Sergio. Lou Sergio ends up beating the Michigan guy, puts me out of the tournament, but again, he ends up becoming an All-American. So again, I'm 0-2, Ryan, at the NCAA tournament my first 2 years. And I think that was kind of that. That's where you start doing some like, hey, what am I doing? Like you start going, am I developing fast enough? Like I'm wrestling with these guys from Foxcatcher. I believe in my coach. I believe in the University of Pennsylvania. So I wasn't necessarily questioning that per se, but I was more questioning myself. It wasn't my coach. I wasn't questioning my coach. I wasn't questioning my training situation. It was more of just like questioning myself. Like, what are you doing? And I think that that's where I needed an infusion of confidence pretty quickly. And so my one desire was like, okay, I'm not feeling very good. I wanted to go back home. I wanted to go to Amarillo. I wanted to go like wakeboard with my buddies every single day. Like I thought I needed a break. And this is where a good coach knows his athlete. So I was wanting to kind of escape and go back home and, get a tan, throw my sunshades on and chill. And Coach Rain is like, no, I think you need to go to the Espoir Nationals. Right? So Espoirs are what are kind of U23s now, universities, U23s. So back then I'm like, so not only do I want a break, you're telling me actually I need to go wrestle more. And so we end up loading up in a van, and one of my assistant coaches, Rich Hines, who's no longer with us now, unfortunately, but he loaded us up in a van and drove us down to North Carolina to the Espoir Nationals. And so I start in Greco. Lo and behold, I win the whole thing. I'm the Espoir Nationals champ. Freestyle starts the next day. I'm wrestling freestyle. I end up making the finals. I have this guy named Tim Hartung in the finals who's tough. He ended up doing pretty well in college wrestling. I have Tim Hartung in the finals. I end up beating him. So here I go from I'm 0-2 at the NCAAs my first 2 years, but I'm the national champion at Greco and the national champion in freestyle. And that again, I needed that. I think Coach Reyna knew he knew that I was better at freestyle and Greco in general than I was folk style. And so I think he knew I needed that kind of pick me up. I needed that infusion of confidence. So I went and wrestled that, and I think after having that success, that was really, really important for me. And I think that got me back on track for my future.